Our next guest is StonkBrokers, which is really the first NFT primitive we saw on Robinhood, which gained a lot of attention. There seems to be a lot of different facets to it to plug into. So I want to kind of get the full picture and broader understanding. But they're coming up. This token launch went crazy. I think it launched at a pretty low fair value. You could convert your NFT into tokens, if I'm understanding that correctly. People were doing that. What I think we need in Robinhood is a culture, is a community. This is what happens for all the early blockchains, right? If you look at Solana, if you look at Base, if you even look at Ethereum back in the day, right? Each chain kind of has their own respective community that is like the early days OGs. We don't have that for Robinhood yet. I think it's still getting felt out, but interested to see how the NFTs play into the RWA side of things and the unique mechanisms here. Of course, doing very well loved by the people. So we got Mr. Simple Farmer ready to go. Can I get a thumbs up here, Simple Farmer, if you're good to go? All right, he's on the move. So he's going to talk us through everything today. Simple Farmer, welcome to MCG. We're excited to have you, and we're excited to really learn the full idea here behind StonkBroker. And you're muted, my friend.
GM guys, can you hear me?
We sure can. Welcome to the show, man. We're excited to chat.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the platform to help get the word out.
Of course. I'm sure things have been pretty crazy for you in the last couple of days. Like, this launched and has gone absolutely wild, absolutely crazy. Was this like how much thought kind of went into this? You know, Robinhood is a relatively new chain. Were you thinking, I want to do an NFT collection, I want to kind of leverage some stocks, I want to do this before Robinhood launched? Or was this like, oh gosh, this is a cool opportunity, there's kind of a gap in this market, let me jump in and fill it?
Yeah, so we were way before the Robinhood launch. We were one of the earliest projects on Robinhood Chain's testnet because we entered the Arbitrum 1 hackathon back in January. And then there was actually like a seminar where they presented some of the hackathon projects, and Adam Fern, who's head of BD at Robinhood Chain, actually presented StonkBrokers as their most fun launch that they had come through. That post went pretty viral, and I think that was helpful in us gaining early recognition and distribution. We've been planning for a while and then just building and iterating on improving the product line that corresponds to what StonkBrokers is, because I think distribution is as important as product. Product is a difficult mode to build around in the age of AI, especially because people can develop, things like a Launchpad within a few days now. So what's most important for us is capturing that culture and that motto, which is at this time, clock in.
Okay, so you're capturing the culture and the motto. You mentioned distribution is important. I mean, that's what it comes down to in this day and age when AI is so strong, software is so easy to replicate, fork, and build. Distribution becomes completely one of the most important facets you need to focus on. And so like this community, this distribution angle is very important. What is it that you guys are building though? Because it's not just a community. It's not just like a meme or an NFT. It seems like there's more to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an experience within the project, which is the dynamic between the token and the NFT, which are paired 1-for-1 at a stable rate. The swap between the token, the NFT, and the NFT and the token itself power fees that are distributed to the people who have these activated StonkBrokers. And then we have a feature called Clock In, where users essentially initiate the smart contract call to distribute the airdrop of RWA assets to all the activated brokers. And so far, over $150,000 has been distributed to those holders. We're on day 5 now, so in 4 to 5 days that's happened. We are number 6 for revenue on Robinhood Chain, and like I said, the majority of that is distributed to NFT holders. And then we have additional phases. So we're number 6 in revenue right now, and we've essentially only launched 25% of our upcoming product line.
Okay, well, we're going to have to get into the remaining percentage of upcoming product line in a second here. But I honestly jumped the gun a little bit. Can I get a bit of your background? It seems like you've been in the space, been building for a while. Early testnet for Robinhood, which is really interesting. So like you've clearly had this focus for a while, which not everyone can say. We're seeing a lot of slop launch on Robinhood, of course, because it's the most exciting thing. So having like time in the market for a very new market is important. So what's your background? How did you get into crypto, into building NFTs, building a protocol, all that stuff?
Yeah, I started in crypto on Arbitrum 1 actually, in the early days when gas was so expensive, even on an L2, that products essentially weren't functional because of the gas constraints. The main issue back then was that we didn't have meme coins. We just had products that would launch bullish white papers, and then those tokens would do really well, and they were usually DeFi products. So I got in via DopeX. I was trading decentralized options on DopeX, and I did fairly well there. And then I used that as kind of an incubator for myself to start my development journey. After that, I was hired by ApeCo, which is a subsidiary of Yuga Labs running Ape Chain. I was head of DeFi and development at ApeCo. And we had a lot of success connecting to a lot of different chains, improving the ApeCoin token, and just creating a strong narrative around the token itself. We usurped, for example, like Pengu for mindshare for a strong period of time during some of my activations, something which was called Project Raid. And then ApeCo disbanded actually in May. So after that process, I essentially started continuing on my individual development. I've always kind of been experimenting on chain. I've built prediction markets like a polymarket parlay platform. But my main difficulty was always gaining distribution. I think first-time founders focus on product and second-time founders focus on distribution. And I think we finally captured the key to breaking the actual the cycle there with NFT communities in mind. NFT communities have shown to me that they have the best marketing. They have the best community, stronger even community than meme coins. And their main issue for scaling has always been their accessibility to the market. So NFTs essentially can't be traded on centralized exchanges. Our new system allows them to scale, and StonkBroker token getting listed on centralized exchanges, which just happened over the last couple of days, is the first example of an NFT doing so.
Yeah, let's talk about that mechanism. Obviously, you have deep experience working at, Yuga Labs, right? Known for probably one of the most prominent IPs and NFTs in history, right? I mean, it's the punks and it's the apes, right? Josh actually is a fellow ape here in the chat.
No, never an ape.
Oh, it's
an
you were
OG
punk.
CryptoPunk guy, yeah. But I will say, guys, SimpleFarmer is an OG, just so everyone knows. I'm pretty sure I've followed you for some time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, look, Bored Apes, CryptoPunks, it's the only people that take their on-chain asset and turn it into their identity. And that's interesting because it's otherwise impossible to market to your audience in crypto. You don't know how to market to an anonymous smart wallet that's trading on a token. Marketing to an NFT holder is much easier. And then when you use that NFT holder as the actual collective ownership and your user base, they become an effective marketing machine as well. So that decentralized marketing force is what I think is going to be the X factor for us.
How do you turn like community into power users? Because I think that is important, and we're seeing tokens uniquely have value in like bootstrapping distribution and finding like initial product market fit, which is the most difficult part for early stage products. How do you turn this community of NFT users? How do you rally them together to get them to be power users of products?
Yeah, the financial incentivization essentially is the clear distinction. The use of the products powers the revenue share, which goes directly to these NFT holders. So they're financially incentivized to do so. And we already see that in action with a ton of people who have already PFP. The StonkBrokers shared their rewards that they've been getting in the form of airdrops. And the fact that the community actually has to be the one to initiate the rewards distribution via this clock in feature. And so that's our motto. It's kind of like clock in, get ready to bag work, and participate in Robinhood Chain.
Nate made a really interesting point when we were talking earlier about like the stickiest point that Robinhood did based off some like internal research was as soon as people actually got an asset and started trading with it, that's when they became sticky users. And you're kind of going down the route that we're seeing a few people do in terms of like airdropping stocks, specifically to your holders in this case. How do you make sure that basket gets kind of spread open to as many people as possible so they maybe have a piece in the upside of this and become that sticky user of the products you're developing and, maybe become a part of the community?
Yeah, so I think it's important that the base asset, which is the NFT, which is, an aggregation of enough tokens so that you can activate revenue share is important, but then also giving that token solid utility is super important. And that's why down the line, we're going to be introducing a V-DEX to power swaps and give that token itself voting power of which LPs are actually amplified within the platform itself. I think a V-DEX is one of the best products in DeFi that we have in terms of revenue generation. And I have to make sure that we build our moat around something other than token trading volume and NFT trading volume. That's our early, essentially flywheel. And we expand the flywheel by adding these long-term utilities, which are given distribution through these NFT holders and their marketing power. And I think with the Launchpad specifically, I think a lot of people will come to the Stonk launcher who otherwise maybe have difficult time gaining traction, launching in a classic Launchpad setting, right? Because KOLs have a lot of firing power, but new individuals rarely do, especially if they have no voice on X. But a lot of people have great products. And the StonkBrokers themselves will kind of become the curators. I think that the collective voice of the StonkBroker supporting like a token that comes through on the Stonk Launchpad is going to be stronger than like an Ansem retweet at one point.
Can I ask you something? Because we have so many projects come on this show, and I think we see a few of them go wrong in the sense that they don't really expound upon exactly what it is they're building. And an issue with something like this is when you have an extensive roadmap and you're building a V-DEX, a Launchpad, all these different things, it kind of gets convoluted, and then no one really knows what to rally and push behind, like collectively. How are you guys thinking about that and trying to avoid like the convolution of all these different narratives, although maybe very cool and profitable, but how do you kind of coordinate everybody to make sure you have this collective push towards the most important things?
Yeah, I think, what's important to know is that the technology itself scales infinitely on its own. What I'm trying to build are layers that are inventions, less than a on-chain company. These are essentially inventions that work together and will exist on-chain forever. Right now we have 6 smart contracts working together to create our ecosystem. And by the end, we'll probably have 20 or 25, all pushing this dynamic flywheel where there's a lot of value alignment between NFT holders and the revenue that they're gaining. And that reflects, I think, upon the value of the token asset itself too. And I think that's a really big deal. In terms of how we focus that marketing message, I leave the marketing to the community. I think they're going to do a great job. And I believe that we're already getting some of the best holders in crypto who I've seen buying in that are CryptoPunks holders, that are BAYC holders, folks that are in the trenches and active every day, and their voice carries a lot of value. And I think they're going to be much better curators for the trenches than the classic KOL.
Very interesting. So let's talk about this. Fern said, you guys were here for the Robinhood testnet. Fern specifically said this is the most fun product to come out of it. So, maybe there's a relationship there. But talk to us now about what this product is. You said it's unique to you guys. You were the first to do it with this token NFT collection. Now, I remember back in the day, we saw ERC 404, I believe it was, where it was tokens paired with an NFT. One token equaled one NFT. How do you guys differentiate your product and maybe just dive deeper into what that product offering is?
Yeah, so we're not using 404s and we're not using any type of token tax because these token standards don't scale with centralized exchange listings properly. That flywheel gets broken when they get listed on centralized exchanges. With StonkBrokers, we're using a classic ERC20 and we're using a classic ERC 721C. And then the actual functionality that we get, the flywheel, is created by additional smart contracts. So essentially an AMM that exists between the NFT and the token, the NFT, where the fee is charged to essentially create these rewards. At the same time, the users who want to activate their NFT and then enter into the tiers of activation where they boost their rewards flow, those users actually have to burn the native token. So we get a deflationary aspect as well. We've gotten to about 10% in total supply burned. And every transfer of the NFT, so anytime the NFT is transferred to a new partner or holder, actually nullifies that activation status. So then it has to be activated again to push that flywheel forward.
So I really want to focus in on this because I think this is where we lose a lot of people. I think it's we understand the solution. You guys have created something unique and there are all these different steps to it. So understanding like each step, I think intimately is going to be interesting for this conversation. But you mentioned like this has to be unique to scale. And so because of that, you have all these different smart contracts and functionalities in place. So could we kind of just maybe focus from step one to kind of like A to Z on, where each smart contract and each mechanism comes into play?
Of course. Yeah. And, I understand that there's a lot of levels to this technology, but I think as crypto progresses, we're going to get more complex technologies. Like the hammer is a great invention, but the airplane is a better invention. It's also a more valuable one and it's more complicated to build, right? The smart contracts themselves, right now there's 6. And the first 2 core ones are the NFT contract itself and the token contract, which are paired one-to-one and activated via a standardized value in the number of tokens you need to get an NFT out, plus a 10% fee based on the value of the actual asset of the NFT itself. So that 10% fee goes up and down with the price of the token. Those fees go to the people who have the activated StonkBrokers NFTs. The second layer of this is there's a loan feature where users can essentially take out a loan on their StonkBroker, but they have to pay a 15% fee up front and they have 1 year to pay it back. Those fees also go to the stock distribution system. The layer after that is the stock booster itself, and that's what's accruing all of these fees. And this is where the clock in feature comes. It's actually a contract that anybody can call. And so what we end up having is somebody in the community has to come through multiple times a day. It doesn't have to be the same person. It can be any person in the community and clock in to pay the gas to distribute the airdrop reward to all the activated StonkBrokers. And with that, we're getting that initiation of the community of bag working.
To clock in to pay that gas, do you get like any extra distribution or benefit for clock? I mean, the gas is, I'm assuming, very small, but do you get any kind of benefit for doing that, making it more automated over time, obviously?
No, it's actually 100% based, on giving. It's like 10 cents to make that distribution. And I think it's symbolic in a way that everybody gives back a little bit. And then, long term, you essentially, that definitely easily pays for itself. We've had users who have earned upwards of $5,000 in stock distributions already.
Okay. So you have the smart contract for the token and the NFTs. Now, to burn an NFT and get tokens, there is a 10% fee. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, but you don't burn the NFT. You actually swap the NFT into the AMM, which escrows the NFT into the vault.
Okay. Okay. So it's market made. And then the 10% fee is used to buy stocks, which are distributed to the active NFT holders. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, it's the 10% fee is deposited into this booster vault, the clock in functionality. That's where the swap and the distribution happens. So we're not actually initiating any swaps for stocks or any distributions ourselves. The community is doing that for themselves.
A big piece of this puzzle is having the right distribution of stocks, the right index, the right basket, you could say. Is this a community vote, or how are you picking and choosing the best assets?
Yeah, so right now we have precious metals in there. So we have silver, we had oil as well, SpaceX, NVIDIA, Amazon, and Apple. But long-term, definitely, that's going to be one of the core functionalities of the token itself to allow the brokers to decide on which stocks they want to speculate on. And this is where the Launchpad gets really interesting, because we can plug in any CA based on the community vote. So technically, the community could come through and support not a stock, but a stonk. So for example, whatever, like a cash cat. And then the question is, how does the market react when a community that has maybe potentially millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in fees is now deciding to push their collective power into one token? I think we get into a really cool social experiment there.
Got it. So they could vote. Okay, so maybe you could explain that again, because I think it is interesting. I caught it, but I'm not fully grasping it. So basically, the community has this pool of fees, and they could launch or pair something against anything. Let's call it, cash cat. And now that pairing will also kind of have the buying power of automatic accumulation of that stock, and it should translate into people maybe buying it. Maybe just explain that again for me so I understand. I think I have a bit of it.
Yeah, so I think that there's, first of all, there's like, let's say a meme coin comes out that's an excellent narrative, like, absolute killer, the next fart coin. For example, that next fart coin can be initiated through like KOLs in the community tweeting about it and telling everybody, because they get a piece of it, essentially, because of the fee flow, how that fee flow works. But also they could choose to push their fees into that stonk. Now, this is not a feature that's live yet. This is something that's down the line. I'm not sure. Maybe that never happens, right? Maybe the community prefers RWA assets for their fees and rewards distributions. But the idea is, what if Pump Fund one day decided to essentially turn all their fees into purchasing one meme coin that's starting at like 100K? What happens to that chart, right? What kind of attention does that grab? And I think that's really important to marketing and gaining distribution.
That's interesting. I mean, we're kind of seeing that in real time with something like Pawns, which is like the leading Launchpad right now, to where 20% of supply has already been kind of bought back just because of their flywheel. And so if you have a Launchpad, putting a lot of those fees towards just, accumulation of the asset, maybe burning, holding, whatever, it does cause for a very interesting dynamic, especially one that outpaces, if the Launchpad is doing a lot of revenue, can outpace like even the market cap of the token at certain times. So
unless it's paired with the token.
Unless what's paired with the token?
Unless that new token, that meme is also paired with the base asset, with the StonkBroker token. That's like, it's very, very experimental. So you could do, this is an on-chain experiment. You could do many things with it.
Got you. Okay, so you guys are working on this Launchpad. Maybe talk me through, I guess, how long we should expect on that coming out. You just dropped a new video actually on X, which I can play. I think it's pretty timely. So I'll share this.
I tried to time it.
Oh, dude, love that. So here we'll even play this. I'll put it over here. All right, so this is the tweet. The stock exchange Launchpad is officially coming to Robinhood Chain Friday, July 31st. Clock in, community for community, not financial advice. Here, we'll play it.
What makes a token launch actually scale? Not bonding curves. No.
Let me not do 2x speed. Sorry, I'm a perpetual 2x speed kind of guy. So
wow.
Come on, dude. Got to get all that information. All right.
The token launch actually scale. Not bonding curves, not templates, not even influencers. It's architecture, because every project is different. So why launch like everyone else?
Real projects need custom control, flexible liquidity, true freedom.
Combine custom mechanics with 28 million retail traders on Robinhood. That's where Stonk Launcher comes in. The customizable token launchpad by StonkBrokers. Engineered to design, deploy, distribute, and dominate. Don't just launch a token, build a legacy. What makes
Very cool. Very cool. Love that video. It's actually a really good video. Was this made with AI? Because AI videos have come so far.
Yeah, definitely. I
You
didn't
mean
hire.
he didn't
paid
get
actors.
actually punched?
No, I mean, that would have been cool, right? No, definitely made with AI, but the video creator did a great job, and shout out to him.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So that's the new Launchpad. Do you have any expectations or just thoughts around that you want to kind of expound upon?
Yeah, look, I think long term, launchpads are tricky. I don't even know if launchpads will be a thing 5-10 years from now. I think eventually maybe we get some type of agentic tech that essentially allows you to launch every type of token free of any UI interaction at all. But I think in the short term, what we'll do is we'll have some of the most customizable, interesting launches, including new token standards and new combinations that have never been seen before on Robinhood Chain or anywhere else. I loved your previous guest, by the way. I think the pairing with the stock tokens as the base asset is awesome, and I think he's doing a great job. So shout out to Nate and the team at Long as well. I love also the way that he was explaining his vision. Just want to definitely give flowers there. But with the Stonk launcher, essentially you'll have a lot of custom features, and there's been different types of tokens launched, like tax tokens. There's been strategy tokens, but there's actually never been combinations of different things. And now we have a lot of different assets to build with on Robinhood Chain. I'll leave it at that. I'll leave the rest to surprise. I also am exploring an option where a token's trading is actually partially influenced by BRNG, so creating infinitely fair launches.
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, clearly you're experimenting with new primitives. I mean, just like the StonkBroker's NFT token, initially came to be. It's a new primitive. So I think that's very interesting. And I want to ask how you kind of think about these ongoing launchpad wars. We see so many launchpads try to do the same thing. I think what's unique here is Long's kind of got its unique vertical. Pawns kind of dominates the current like fair launch model, just paired to, normal USDG or, ETH. And you guys are maybe going to do the vertical where it's a lot more customization of different like new primitives. How do you think about the current launchpad wars? Is it a one winner takes all situation? Is it each one's kind of got to fit their unique niche and vertical? Yeah, just curious how you think about it.
I think it's an iron sharpens iron scenario where a competition leads to us creating better products that are just good for crypto as a whole. I think it's most important that the launchpads that do the best are non-extractive ones. I think we've gotten into like a tragedy of the commons type situation over the past couple of years in crypto, where there's exceptionally little liquidity and a lot of people doing industrial level fishing, essentially putting a lot of hooks in the water that's creating just shittier and shittier ecosystems long term and a really poor experience. I think, for example, the index token is a very good experience for a new crypto user. Like you get these stock token distributions. I think StonkBrokers is also a very good sticky experience for new users. And so the idea is how can we combine that? And I think the Stonk launcher will be a merit-based launchpad where the best products do super well. And they'll have that community that'll come through and bootstrap and push them early, because we're going to give options for essentially any new token launch to immediately airdrop to all StonkBrokers NFT wallets, to immediately airdrop to all Pudgy Penguins if they want at launch, or to all Bored Apes, or to all CryptoPunks. I think that's actually one of the keys to scaling new successful tokens, is getting that early marketing push, because it is at the end of the day an attention cycle. But also we're going to be super flexible. Then when new technologies come in, we'll make sure and utilize them and push them into making them available options for new token launches on the Launchpad. So you could have one new type of token launch coming on launch day, and 1 month later you could have 5 additional ones, and we'll try to keep people on their toes and surprise folks. Because of course, I think the best advertising is usually on DEX screener.
Yeah, and green candles, right? Very, very interesting answer. I kind of want to ask, and NFTs do this; they gamify experiences a little bit. But what do you think happens in the future in terms of like gamifying financial experience? In terms of, will we see a world where I have my stockbrokers walking around in a proverbial Wall Street somewhere, and I can go and cash in or clock in and get the distribution in real time? Because you said, how do we make this sticky to users and like bring on the average person, which is largely the retail focus and push Robinhood has. I think the retail and focus crypto like can do as well. And we know gamification kind of does this and makes it fun and interesting and sticky for people. How do you think about the gamification of the financial world? Is it something we see happening? Does it stay like we currently see it? Just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, look, the StonkBroker's economy itself is a gamified experience. It's a gamified DeFi experience, which you can take a lot of strategies into to try to succeed. But I also think that it's a completely different angle than like building a metaverse or 3D metaverse. I think what Yuga Labs doing with Other Side, for example, is very interesting, and long term could be very effective for people who want to build things with that. But with StonkBrokers, what I'm going to focus on is a permissionless building layer. So we're going to essentially allow community members who have their brokers to build out experiences using their brokers and that IP to expand our ecosystem. And if that goes into a metaverse and becomes a stock exchange that you can walk around inside of and clock in, so be it. I mean, layer 0 allows for cross-chain calls as well, so I don't see why that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, it seems like your whole mantra is very open to new experimentation. Interesting. I want to talk about this relationship. Fern calling this the most fun project to come out of the testnet. What does your relationship with Fern look like? What does your relationship with Robinhood look like? Yeah, curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very positive. I've reached out for like building tools for, I needed a list of all the stock tokens that are available, for example, for the Stonk launcher. And I was able to get that very fast, which was very appreciated. I think Adam Fern and myself are cut from a similar cloth in that, working for Arbitrum Orbit chains, with him coming from Proof of Play and Pirate Nation and myself working at Ape Chain. So I think there's a lot of similarities there. So we probably have some type of back-end solid understanding and knowledge on how chains operate and what things work and what things don't. And that probably leads to us having good and easy communication. Because I'm not saying I know what they're doing internally, but I understand how blockchain companies work. And what I'm most impressed with Robinhood Chain is that I know they have a huge team. And so far, I just want to say that I think their founder is S tier. I think Vlad Tenev and the moves he's been making are just like infinitely cool. I think the way Johan responded to Jesse yesterday was a very based response. It was an excellent response to a straw man critique, essentially, by Base against Robinhood Chain. So I think that level of experience lends to not only credibility, but easier communication.
Yeah, Josh knows I've been a long time supporter of Vlad as a CEO of Robinhood for a long time. I think he's a very innovative person. Being some of the earliest people to bring private equity kind of on chain with SpaceX and OpenAI and Anthropic. And I think just the push they've made to bring financialization to retail has been second to none, clearly. So I'm bullish on Robinhood as operators as a whole. With that being said, I kind of want to talk about how you think about the Robinhood builder community. We know builders want to build something where there's going to be distribution, right? And we know Robinhood has the distribution. They have the people to build for. How is Robinhood, in your opinion, looking at crypto, looking at their layer 2 and looking to really foster this builder community, as well as like bring that to their massive retail customer base to really benefit like the experience you have on Robinhood?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important question, because essentially right now you could create some of the best products in the world, and Polymarket broke through that barrier. But the onboarding process to crypto, where you have to download a smart wallet, MetaMask or Rabby, and then start using a DApp is a very large filter. I think it's like trying to get a woman pregnant while wearing 2 condoms. It's very difficult, right? That doesn't happen. Not a lot gets through, and it's the same as if I invite you to play basketball and I have to explain the basketball to you for like 10 hours, right? It's like, fuck this game. I don't want to play basketball.
That is the most. That's the first analogy on MCG that I've ever heard. Like,
we're the sperms that got through, guys. That's us.
That is true. I mean, theoretically, everyone is the one that got there. So
but imagine if you're the guy that got through 2 condoms on top of the 1 in whatever trillion chance.
That's a crypto trader. On chain. on chain.
Huge.
But I think Robinhood has this cool thing, right, where they have an app. They have that direct distribution funnel that essentially eliminates that filter. And so I can see a future where all of the apps that are on Robinhood Chain are usable through like Robinhood Wallet, Robinhood app, maybe hopefully one day, them essentially enhancing that distribution flow. And then the assets that are on chain get extremely interesting, not to mention the fact that they have this switch where it's like list the token on Robinhood. That's immense power. And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing the major speculation on any project that gets followed by Vlad himself.
Is this sticky? Does Robinhood stick?
Oh, for sure. Stock tokens are the key by far. It's 99% of the weight I put towards the future of Robinhood Chain is on RWAs. And the memes coming through Robinhood Chain, the fact that they can be paired with those RWAs is the most interesting thing that we've had in crypto in a long time. And I think crypto users have been moving towards RWAs anyway. Solana's top performing protocols are ones linked to RWAs. They're Pokemon Gachapons. So why would people also not want stocks? People like stocks. People like Pokemon cards. These are highly liquid assets that are highly desirable. And crypto users kind of want to hedge a little bit because they're already participating in an extremely risky ecosystem.
I want to ask you about that because it is really crazy. I mean, if you look at Robinhood, we saw in the early days there's almost no RWA exposure on Robinhood, but then we saw gold launch, we saw silver launch, we saw oil launch, and all of a sudden you had a 24/7 tradable market for assets that were typically illiquid and inaccessible. And all of a sudden now 35 to 40% of hyperliquid's volume comes from RWAs. Same thing with Solana. Solana for the longest time was a meme chain until recently we saw the volumes go from nearly nothing to 6, 7, maybe 7 billion at this point in spot RWA volumes based on, Sunrise and X stocks and pre-stocks kind of bringing those to the availability for Solana. With that being said, do you think we're pivoting to RWAs and stocks at a top? And I know that kind of contradicts everything I just said, but it feels like everyone is now focusing on crypto, maybe because crypto's performed so badly. Is this like a top for RWAs or stocks short term? And are we making the move at the bottom?
No, look, but that's the point of crypto has always been to be the replacement for the financial layer of the world. It just got lost. We got bored, so we started creating meme coins and gambling and playing liquidity musical chairs. I think this was always the point, and that was the vision of DeFi. When DeFi gets so good, you'll be using it and you don't realize you're using it. And so Robinhood Chain stock tokens are a step in that direction. The off hours trading and that token, that stock's price happening based on the stock token trading, that's a big deal, man. That's what crypto was made for originally. We're moving in absolutely the right direction. Definitely not a bottom, if anything.
Yeah, but I'm saying, all these stock pairings, right? We just talked to Nate. Obviously, if I pair, my token to Nvidia, we've seen the equities market run so hot for the last 2 years, and crypto's underperformed so much. Is this the wrong time to be pairing tokens against stocks when we're kind of bottomed out in crypto? I guess was kind of my questioning.
No, I think it's not the wrong time because it's driving attention and distribution that we need. It's making assets that are way more interesting because they're much more gamified, right? Because previously, you could obviously pair with USDC, which is stable, but you could pair with ETH, you could pair with BTC at launch, but these are assets that move together. Stocks, they move oftentimes opposite of crypto, and that hedge and that gamification lends to more strategy, lends to more options for builders, for creators. I think it's positive both ways. I think you'll see assets do well paired either way, but in general, I think it's bullish for Ethereum that there are stock coins. So I think they benefit one another, if that makes sense. The technology entering the space is one of the most bullish things we've had happen since people started trading on chain.
I would tend to agree, and I think that's one of the better arguments I've heard in regards to even if we are kind of toppy on equities and bottoming on crypto, it's like crypto has historically moved together, right? On chain and off chain. If Bitcoin goes up, on chain's going up too. So you kind of have a double-edged sword where if it goes down double as hard. If it goes up double as hard. Whereas you can kind of have more strategy here where if equities are toppy but crypto's not, you kind of get the best of both worlds. So that's, really interesting here. I want to talk about some of the numbers for stockbrokers. You mentioned like X amount of money distributed. Can you talk about money distributed, holders, just any kind of high level stats or numbers you could share with us that are interesting?
Yeah, so we added a DeFi Llama support yesterday, actually, and that's on my Twitter page for Clutch Markets, where you can actually track the top protocols by revenue on Robinhood Chain and volume. And we are I'm sorry? Did you guys hear a noise there?
Oh, sorry. I think that must have come in on the back when I'm sharing screen.
No, you're good. You're good. Essentially, we're right behind virtuals and we're ahead of OpenSea for volume on Robinhood Chain, which is super cool. Number 6. I think that's a great starting point for a project that's 4 or 5 days old. And I think that gives the community like this prospective vision of the possibilities. It's like, what happens when we turn on 3 additional huge funnels of potential fees? And I think that's going to be massive encouragement for people to go out and market our new activations when they come through. Because, as an individual, as an inventor, creator, my voice has reach, but I think our collective voice can actually make a change where we can essentially move crypto more towards a merit-based economy and less towards like a KOL-based economy, which, I'll make another metaphor here. Imagine if the World Cup was played by not the best soccer players in the world, but the people that Dinero, Dom, or the people that Josh knows. It'd be a really shitty sport to watch. It'd be terrible, right? But that's what we currently have in crypto. The best products have been getting ignored for the sake of essentially pumping KOL bags or VC bags and stuff like that. This type of product, what StonkBrokers is trying to push against that direction. It's very much, I think, aligned with like the original cypherpunk vision. Got you.
And I'm thinking back to something I mentioned earlier too. We were talking about the fundamentals, how this thing works, the 10% fee, the stockbrokers, the NFTs. What if I just buy the token? Is it a one? You mentioned 1-to-1 with the stockbrokers. Do I still get distributions if I'm holding the token rather than an NFT? Do I get the NFT if I buy the token?
So that's a very core component of the actual strategy itself, is that you have to swap your token to get an NFT to activate those rewards distributions. And the reason I want that is because my target audience for getting NFTs are people who are going to PFP those NFTs and become our decentralized marketing force.
Talk to me about that. I mean, obviously that causes float to come off the market, which is always kind of bullish in terms of, the less that there is to trade, the typically better price can perform. Do you have those numbers on hand? How many people have swapped tokens for NFTs and kind of taken that, out of circulation, at least temporarily?
Yeah. So essentially there's been roughly 1,500 of the 4,444 brokers activated. And so once people pay that activation tier, it doesn't carry with the NFT. So if they sell the NFT then on secondary, that value they paid to burn tokens is essentially lost. So it's a very strong incentive to hold long term. So the people who are activating brokers are people who are long-term believers in the token, the protocol itself. So far, the numbers are very good. Like I said, we've burned close to 10% of the total token supply, and 1,500 brokers activated, I think is a very, very solid start. I think that'll continue to push higher. And the dips people so far are using for opportunities to activate more brokers, which is burning more tokens. So that is a key component of the flywheel itself. And at the same time, a large portion of the token being held in these NFTs that are essentially saying they might as well be vested, right? Because of the incentivization layer here. That is, I think, bullish for the token trading itself. And I think we're the number 3 most liquid token on Robinhood Chain if you look at that.
Oh, wow.
Specifically.
Yeah, I mean, just on DEX screen, I see 1.5 million in liquidity, but I'm sure there's maybe other liquidity pools out there too. Pretty crazy. Let's talk through, I guess, roadmap, kind of future plans here. You mentioned like you've maybe got 25% of your roadmap done. You're working on the Launchpad, the VDEX, maybe even talk me through a little bit more on what the thinking is around the VDEX and how that kind of functions. And yeah, just curious, roadmap, future thoughts. What are we working on?
Yeah, look, Pump Fund launched its own DEX for a reason, because DEX is earn massive revenue. It's a great mode. It's especially when you already have a user base that's going to trade tokens anyway. They might as well do it on a DEX that's rewarding them. It's like buying local, right? And we're able to scale with that property. I also think being a strong VDEX, it's excellent DeFi technology in and of itself, especially in a high volume chain like Robinhood Chain, and especially on a chain that has stock tokens that are also available to trade. I think that's a very key component of a successful DEX on Robinhood. I would love to talk about the fourth layer, which is maybe a little more complicated and less sexy at face value, but I think it's actually a huge narrative on Robinhood Chain that we've never had really do super well on any of the other EVMs or Solana, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to get into it if you could break it down for us.
So phase 4 is essentially a decentralized options exchange, where then users can take their stock tokens that are being held by their stockbroker or otherwise, and essentially plug them in to decentralized options, where they can, put their liquidity above the stock token price or below the stock token price and earn yield in the form of premiums, selling them as calls or puts. I think that's a super cool thing we can do on Robinhood Chain, and that's something that I haven't been able to do on other chains because it would require paying for certain things like Oracle price feeds that are exceptionally expensive. But Robinhood Chain essentially supplies us with that, which so huge appreciation to the team there for giving builders the pieces we need to succeed.
How do you decide on what you want to build?
There are things that I think are in general the future backing of financial technologies, and I try to lean towards that. And I also am looking directly at where the meat of the revenue is in crypto. So I think the best marketing in crypto is actually NFT people. I think the best revenue in crypto is obviously token swaps, perps to an extent. Options, I think, can usurp perps for stock tokens. And I think a lot of people trade stock options for a reason. And the thing is, with the decentralized options exchange that I'm building, it's going to essentially equate to leverage without liquidations, which is super important. And it's something that we've struggled to achieve in crypto.
This is interesting.
Why haven't options gotten product market fit on in crypto?
I think it's because they're slightly more difficult than pulling a leverage slider, to understand. as a whole, but I think that the elite leverage traders of the world trade options more than they trade perps.
Yeah, of course. Is there any, I mean, you traded on DopeX back in the day, which of course I definitely remember, but is there any other mechanical reason why options haven't really, at least on-chain options? I mean, there's the off-chain options exchange. I forget the big one, but Deribit, yeah, that's it. But
Deribit,
is there any
Bybit,
reason why on-chain options haven't taken off?
Yeah, I think in general it's because you could trade options maybe on ETH or BTC, but everything else is extremely liquid, and options require that liquidity to capture essentially that value. So it's silly to trade an option on a token that only has like 200, 300K in liquidity, because your option could exceed that value of that liquidity as a whole. For example, while with stock tokens, these are extremely liquid assets, and these are things that we can build options technology with. And I think it's something that people are sleeping on. But long term, you're going to see the rise of this more and more, and Robinhood Chain will be the first chain to capture that value, in my opinion.
This is a good question by Crypto Jones, and actually, I'm curious, why do you think Robinhood chose to build on EVM versus something like Solana?
Well, look, Arbitrum L2s are excellent. They offer a high level security. You saw what Arbitrum did with being able to withdraw funds from the hack situation with their security council. They're also extremely cheap, and they're extremely fast. And Arbitrum One is deep in working with the US government to make sure these regulatory pathways are healthy for crypto to develop. They go to Washington, D.C. on a regular basis. Follow AJ Warner. You'll see him there. He posts pictures there. That's a key partner for a Robinhood.
Yeah, I've met AJ a few times. Really nice guy from Toronto as well. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember Arbitrum back in the day. It was a lot of fun, but man, the ETH L2 thing became very really kind of convoluted and lost a bit of the narrative. And then Solana took off for the last couple of years, but it looks like Robinhood's come. I don't want to say saved the day, but in some ways, yes, Robinhood has been a big windfall for the Ethereum narrative broadly. It made me bridge back some soul to ETH. I will not lie.
I see Arbitrum One as more of a tech company than a Solana. And I think that they're scaling, trying to use the technology, and they've done that really successfully with Robinhood. And I think it's probably going to be only one of the first examples. And it's a great example we have because Robinhood already has speculatory aligned users who trade stocks. But Arbitrum One is just playing the long game, and I think they're doing it in a very smart, high level way. They've been earning revenue even without crazy volume of people trading meme coins on their chain. So they have gotten very little attention, and they've achieved massive success. I don't think that's very easy to do in the space.
But yeah, now we even see 10% of Robinhood Chain revenue is going to be going to Arbitrum. Yeah, we talked about this pre-show. I'm pretty bullish on Arbitrum and what they're building, to be honest. I want to even walk it back to, how important is it to be early in new launch, or not new launch, but how important is it to be early in new blockchains? You kind of mentioned these buckets and gaps are going to work in. Okay, well, we can do the VDEX, we can do the Launchpad, we can do the options platform. Even if just one of them hits, you've got an extremely profitable business on a brand new chain that looks like it's promising. Is that kind of the thinking here? Hey, let's just fill all these different gaps that we know are important for blockchains to function. It's already on Base, it's already on Solana. Let's fill those, do it better on Robinhood, and being early is going to be very monumental in kind of establishing ourselves.
Look, my thing is that I worked for a crypto company, and then we had this monumental goal. It's how do we fix this token or whatever, this NFT? How do you make that price go up? How do you increase the user? How do you get those good metrics going? And the foundation of all those problems was that essentially there is no path without this proper retail distribution that Robinhood Chain is offering us now. For me, it's not just about putting out as much product as possible. It's about experimenting and having fun. I genuinely like the challenge of building a decentralized options exchange. I like the challenge of building a V-DEX. I built a cross-chain volatility farming protocol. That's the most complicated thing I've done before. That's like Peapod's finance, but cross-chain. Yep. And these type of things are a challenge to build, and they're fun. When I build things that aren't going to require me to have major overhead, so that they're long-term financial technologies, kind of like the CryptoPunks vision, something that exists outside of the founder. So right now, I'm not saying that this will happen, but somebody could just take the smart contracts from that StonkBrokers are using and just host it on their own UI and call all the functionalities there. There's no external thing needed to run this. Essentially, it's something that's going to be permissionless and exist on blockchain forever. And I think that falls into Vitalik's vision of what this is supposed to look like too.
It does. I mean, it's a decentralized network that you guys are building here. So maybe talk me through the tokenomics of StonkBroker in terms of like, did you withhold some of the tokens or some of the NFTs for core contributors that are gonna? Because like again, the vision's pretty grand. There's a lot of things that need to get built. You're just one man. How do you like get core contributors to meaningfully contribute and kind of help push some of these economics back to StonkBrokers?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the part of the activation and the higher activation tier. So we actually had a user burn $15 million worth of StonkBroker, which was worth like $60,000, to get 9 brokers activated to the highest tier. And the highest tier is known as partner. And so that user is then essentially a partner in the protocol, and they're earning a piece of the fees as long as their broker stays in their wallet and they don't sell it. If they transfer it or sell it, they lose that activation tier. The broker does, that is. It doesn't transfer with that. Those people, I believe, are going to be the core contributors. I think it's a grassroots movement, and I think that's what crypto was supposed to be. It's not the VC route; it's the opposite. It's the trenches running the trenches.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting. I think it's a lot easier to build something alongside somebody or a community than it is to do it by yourself. So I could see
the blind
someone
leading the blind, as I like to say. No, I'm kidding.
maybe. Either way, it's very interesting. I don't know. I think we pretty much covered the full thing. I was glad we could get into the details of how the inner workings of how everything works here, because I think it kind of can be a little daunting to the average person that's just looking at this. So it's really beneficial and valuable to get the breakdown here. Is there anything we missed? I mean, we covered the roadmap, we covered the origins, we covered the mechanisms. We covered Robinhood. Anything we missed here that you want to touch on?
No, just I'll give a disclaimer that none of this is financial advice. This is on-chain experimentation. You know, don't risk more than you can afford to lose. Don't buy this asset or any asset more than you need to, so where you could not sleep comfortably at night. I would say. I hope that in these early stages, and I still think we are in the early stages of crypto, people get into projects that are genuinely fun and communities that are fun, so that when you log in, you don't have a headache or anxiety looking at charts, and instead you actually have a good time trading cryptocurrencies.
We love the disclosures, but isn't it interesting that the things that always run the hardest in crypto are the experiments? I mean, people can come and try to bring Web2 companies on chain or try to redo the same things I've done over and over again. But time and time again, crypto, the things that run really hard for crypto are the uniquely crypto offerings that are experimental and are new. And like, you know, great disclaimer here to give everyone, but it is kind of, you know, beneficial. It can be very beneficial to be early on these experiments and primitives.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's the two wolves thing. I think we've captured that ethos well.
Got you. Crypto Jones says, here's maybe just a little tidbit here. Leave us with what you are most excited about in crypto space going forward. This is just going to, you know, Simple Farmer's take. We like your insights here. So what are you most excited about in crypto going forward?
Yeah, I'm most excited to be able to speak to my wife and have her use some of these assets to where we get to the point that she believes it's real and real money. I think that's going to be an excellent future. Right now, it's difficult. I feel a little bit isolated talking to crypto with people who aren't you guys. You guys are obviously super intelligent, super tapped in. You watch videos on 2x speed. I mean, what more can I say? I have to start trying that. That's some serious shit. I maybe have some mushrooms and watch podcasts on 2x speed too.
There you
go.
But
yeah, I'm excited for us to move out of isolation and into the eyes of the general public as an accepted financial layer and not a black sheep of the planet Earth anymore.
If you can do that successfully, and I can bring this to the family cookout, family dinner, and my uncle and everyone else can see this for the way I see it, I will be forever indebted to you. So, you know, more power.
Me too. Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
I appreciate it.
This is a great conversation. We'll have to get you on. It seems like you're moving fast. So maybe once this Launchpad's out, maybe once the V-DEX out, like let's get you on and talk about it. But this has been fun.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You guys have a blessed day.
Peace. You as well.